Questions? And the thing is, like old bricks, I mean, so much stuff is coming up in my brain and I just want to share it with you, but if I start sharing it with you, it's going to take away from this and I'm not nearly where I want to be. And so let me read you a poem, however. This is one of the first poems and it's very relevant. All the poems are on my website. When you get the evaluation, look at the bottom of the evaluation. My web address is on there, okay? And make sure sometimes the browser sometimes needs to be refreshed. You may end up on my old website. You don't want to do that. If it isn't a photo of me on the main page in a blue sweater, you're on the wrong page, okay? So, because the new website is just like 1,000 times better than the old. So it's me with the blue sweater. And you can click on poems. This one was an early poem that somebody gave me, but is really relevant for this discussion. It's entitled You and I. I am a resident, you reside. I am admitted, remember no texting, you move in. I have behavior problems, you are rude. I am non-compliant, you don't like being told what to do. When I ask you out to dinner, it is an outing. When you ask someone out, it's a date. I don't know how many people have read the progress notes people write about me. I don't even know what's in there. You didn't speak to your best friend for a month after she read your journal. I make mistakes during my check writing program. Someday I might get a bank account. You forget to record some withdrawals from your account. The bank calls to remind you. I wanted to talk with the nice-looking person behind us at the grocery store. I was told it was inappropriate to talk with strangers. Excuse me, I didn't say that right. You met your spouse, yeah, did I say you met your spouse in the produce department, he couldn't find the bean sprouts? Did I say that? Yeah, which by the way, they're very hard to find. You have to ask somebody that day. I celebrated my birthday yesterday with 5 other residents and 2 staff members. I hope my family sends a card. Your family threw you a surprise party. Your brother couldn't make it from out of state. It sounded wonderful. My case manager sends a report every month to my guardian and it says everything I did wrong and some things I did right. You're still mad at your sister for calling your mom after you got a speeding ticket. I'm on a special diet because I'm 5 pounds over my ideal body weight. Your doctor gave up telling you. I am learning household skills. You hate housework. I am learning leisure skills. Your shirt says you're a couch potato. After I do my budget program tonight, I might get to go to McDonald's if I have enough money. You were glad the new French restaurant accepted your charge card. My case manager, psychologist, RN, occupational therapist, physical therapist, nutritionist, and house staff set goals for me for next year. You haven't decided what you want out of life. Someday I will be discharged. Maybe you will move onward and upward. See, therein is the problem. That's it, right there. 2 different ways of thinking. It's us and them. Oh, by the way, this was first published in 1985. Wow. What year is this? 2023? If the computer chip industry would innovate at the same rate we do in our field, we'd still be doing math with an abacus. I'm not kidding you. There's nothing new. We knew this wasn't right back then. And I lost it again. Here it is. Okay, let's take a look at the values. Very important. This is the beginning of this discussion. We're going to drill down. I've taken each one of these out of the settings, the final rule. They have not laid them out in terms of delineating them. I'm delineating them just because I think it makes it easier to understand that it is based upon values. Free from restraint, assure privacy, choice of provider, choice of setting, generic supports. Boy, I hope I can get to that one. That's going to be a big discussion. It's one of our weakest areas. Non-regimented routines, respect and dignity, accessible settings, integrated life. The final one is the reason that the previous 9 exist. Here's the final one. Inclusionary opportunities. That's the key to it all. The vast majority of all the people we support when they pass away, the only people who will be in attendance at their funeral are people paid by the state of California to show up, or family, unless they're unfortunate enough to outlive them. We have created a life for them to assure that they don't have any valued relationships in their life. other than people who are paid. And I'm not minimizing that. That's important. Other than other people receive supports and family, and that's important. But it's not the point. The final rule has a value that people have a right to valued relationship that goes beyond that small circle. Okay, let's start free from restraint. Let's talk about restraint. There are 4 types of restraint. All of your agencies use restraint. Some of it appropriately, some of it inappropriately. Physical, mechanical, chemical, and environmental. Those are the 4 categories of restraint. Restraint is neither good nor bad. It depends upon how, why, when, and where it is used. It is always frequently difficult, if not impossible, to know the purpose of a restraint by merely looking at it. If somebody is wearing a helmet, I don't know if it's a restraint because they have drop seizures or because they engage in self-injurious behavior. If somebody has a bed rail, I don't know if they have that bed rail because they have seizure activity and they might fall out of bed, or because they have Down syndrome and they have early onset Alzheimer's and they get up and walk around the house and we are mechanically restraining them to prevent them from doing that. Every type of restraint has a different review process and a different expectation about how we deal with it. That's always been true. That's not just a final rule thing. That has always been true, okay, in terms of restraint. But many regional centers will say we prohibit restraint. That is not correct. There is not one regional center that prohibits restraint. They say that because they don't understand what that means, many of them. In all instances, here's the key, the use of restraint requires the review assessment by trained and experienced clinicians, professionals to assure appropriate use. That's the bottom line. Whenever restraint is authorized, it is essential that it is consistent with all policy and regulation. That's another, obviously, requirement. Now let's talk about environmental restraint. Put that down. Come here. Where are you going? Sit down. That's the staff in control. That's an environmental. It's obviously not chemical, it's not mechanical, it's not physical. It's people trying to control others through intimidation. It's an environmental relationship kind of restraint. And a mechanical restraint is any device that impairs bodily movement. Any device that impairs bodily movement. And there's a number of categories of mechanical restraint. And we're going to look at the categories of mechanical restraint. This is an unacceptable restraint. The seat belt is tied in the back. Is this person secure or behaviorally restrained? And after I ask a few questions, you find out they're behaviorally restrained. They don't want them to get out of their wheelchair. If the buckle was in the front, they'd be able to get out. Oh, by the way, when I say, can I take a picture of it? Of course, because they're very proud of how they came up with this innovative strategy. Oh, yeah. I'd always get permission, and I can show you pictures that would cause you to vomit. And you would say, how can anybody, which by the way, don't be upset, because I can guarantee if I came to your place, I would be taking the same kind of pictures. They're there, you just don't see it. You will when you go back if you decide to use Jim. Look at this one. Wheelchair brakes on the back. Is the person mechanically restrained? Of course. And I look at that person and I can tell they have really good range of motion. They appear to have autism. And I'm thinking, what's the issue? And what I find out is that they go over to people at the table and they'll knock everything off the table. So what they do is they put the brakes on in the back and he can't go over and knock things off tables or hit people. Licensing is not smart enough to figure it out. Trust me, most service coordinators won't figure it out. But you got to drill down, turn the right. You look at it and you sort of figure out, why would they put those on the back? Another example where they tie the person in from the front. Even Houdini himself wouldn't be able to get out of this mechanical restraint if he had significant limitations in grasping as a result of cerebral palsy. I like this mechanical restraint. This is a good one. This is a mechanical restraint for behavioral purposes as a protective oversight. This individual had intense self-injurious behavior, blinded himself in one eye, tore off part of his ear. So we came up with a device that was a plexiglass device that we could put on his wheelchair and put his arms underneath it. He could still move his arms, he could see his hands, he could manipulate devices, but couldn't injure himself. And then you have people come back, "You're doing that? He's mechanically restrained." Oh, you want him to blind himself in the other eye? I want you to note that these people who are against these things will never give you an option. They will only focus on what you can't do. They won't say is, well, don't do that, it's too intrusive, do this. They won't do that because they can't come up with anything else, okay? I will do anything that is not illegal, immoral, or unethical to keep people safe. Who is the person using that wheelchair? Who's using that wheelchair? Who is it? Who is it? It's me. That's right. Please do this for me. I don't want to rip my other ear off. I don't want to knock out 2 more of my teeth. Please. But these rightists, I call them radical rightists. You can't do that. But it has to be assessed, reviewed. We had an OT involved. We had a behaviorist involved. It was part of their plan. The guy's conserved. The guardian approved. You do what you have to do. That's not in violation of the final rule. That's why I'm putting it up here. Now, are there people who are Monday morning quarterbacks, some service coordinator going to come in and say you can't do that? Yeah, of course. Might licensing come in? There are people who always come in and say that stuff. They make the rules up. And so we have a device. Okay, so the first example is for positioning and body alignment. Many of you, right? You have somebody who tends to fall forward because they have poor trunk control. So the PT has come up with a device, an upper torso kind of restraint to hold them up. Some people have poor head control and their head moves this way, and we put these bands that go across their head with 2 cords going down the back that allows them to move their head, but it keeps it from flopping forward. That is a mechanical restraint for body alignment, and that's common. So you're using mechanical restraint. This is a great mechanical restraint. This is a guy probably average, if not above average intelligence. He's in the regional center system. And he has cerebral palsy where he flares out so badly that he was smashing his hands, going through doorways and on doors. He couldn't bring it back in. The OT came up with these, look at those wrist restraints. They're beautiful. And it was just like he got this smile on his face for the first time. He's able to move around and not constantly try to, engage in spastic type of activities to bring his hands back. And that is a medical protective device ordered by a physician. Medical protective has its own protocol. This is an excellent example of a mechanical arm restraint used for the purpose, I put positioning and as a medical protective device. This individual, as a result of his cerebral palsy, engages in severe extension and flailing arms. The movement has resulted in injury to his arms by hitting doors, frames, walls. This restraint keeps him safe. Next one is as a medical protective device, and this would be medical protective, somebody falling out of their wheelchair to keep them safe, as an example. This one you cannot do. You can't do that. That's out. You can't use a mechanical restraint to consequate behavior as an aversive consequence. Remember I was talking about the restraint chair? The guy would hit somebody, we'd put him in the restraint chair for 20 minutes. That's as an aversive consequence to decrease the frequency and or intensity of the behavior. Can't do that. That is prohibited. And you can't do this one. You cannot use mechanical restraint for crisis. It's used in California. It's used in all states, but mostly in psychiatric environments. Somebody comes in to a psychiatric hospital like where I was in charge, and 5 policemen bring the guy in. He's just crazed. I mean, they can't even hold on to him. 5 policemen. And we'll bring him in, and we'll put him in a prone 5-point restraint for purposes, or a camisole is a straitjacket. We'll put people in a camisole, and that's for purposes of crisis. We can't do that. So those are the 2 you can't use. All the rest, used as discussed, would be appropriate. That's my little humor there, crisis mechanical restraint. Here's an example of crisis mechanical restraint. It's they go around the waist, and then you put the person's arms in there and then lock the wrist down. That is used for a 5-point restraint on the ankles. Here's like a papoose board. You may have seen those. We don't use those. Here's an example of 5-point restraint. Can't do that. And chemical restraint. This is one that is most widely misused in our system. It's commonly used. And though I'm going to put some slides up to concretize this, there is no medication for behavior. You want to make note? There is no medication for behavior. Not an opinion, it's a fact. All medication has to be prescribed based upon a diagnosis. If the physician or psychiatrist can't come up with a diagnosis, they will do what's called a differentiated diagnosis. He really is sullen, and he tends to spend a lot of time in his bedroom. I think, but I'm not sure, he may have depression. So I'm going to put him on lithium. The lithium works, right key in the right lock. Removes the differentiated diagnosis he now has. Because if the medication works, then by definition, it's the right medication, and then you can diagnose it, and you don't have to have a temporary diagnosis. So individuals who have a primary diagnosis of an intellectual disability or autism, and who have a secondary diagnosis that is a psychiatric diagnosis, intermittent explosive disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, bipolar disorder, in my opinion, probably 70% of all those diagnoses are made up. They're not true. What you have is somebody who has a lot of aggression, self-injury, or property destruction. What they're doing is not working, so they put pressure on the primary care physician or a psychiatrist because he's hurting other people or hurting himself, and they have to trump up the secondary diagnosis. In most cases, they're not true. What they're trying to do is use schedules of reinforcement, planned ignoring, It's attention seeking. Yeah, he's trying to get your attention to tell you what his unmet needs are. So attention seeking, don't go there. That's a cheap shot, okay? That's ridiculous. Invite me back to do 2 days of positive behavioral support. It's one of my favorite. So chemical restraint, as you can see, we are using it a lot, but we camouflage it by giving people artificial counterfeit diagnoses. Here's the pharmacology law. The right drug doesn't fix the wrong environment. Isn't it fascinating that people came out of Lanterman Developmental Center in Agnews on cocktails of psychotropic medications, 3, 4, 5 medications, eating their tennis shoes and going from one room to another, engaged in self-injurious behavior and aggression. Agnews and Lanterman had scores of behaviorists and psychologists employed there, spending millions of dollars a year on those departments. Those people had been on those psychotropics for years, very high rates of aggression, self-injury. Now they move out of that place, move into a home where they only have 3 housemates that's very quiet. Look what happens to their conduct. Which you'll usually see great improvement. Where you won't see improvement, usually you won't. Enhanced behavioral homes. Ooh. How do you take a group of people who all engage in aggression and self-injury? You tell them they all have to live with each other and you're going to get something good out of it? Come on. Come on, you know that doesn't work. You want to work in one of those homes? You want to work in one of those homes? I mean, where do they come up with this stuff? It doesn't even make any sense. The people that are highly aggressive and high rates of self-injury, you know who they should be living with? Nobody. And the agencies that really understand that, I work with an agency in West Virginia called Diversified Assessment. They make diversified assessments, make miracles happen. Supporting people who had the most intense, pervasive conduct issues. And by the way, it's called interfering conduct, interfering, aggression, because it interferes with quality of life. Change their lives. They have homes of their own, 24-hour support, unbelievable. And then they introduce after sometimes someone else moves in. Start out with your own home. Drugs treat disorders, not behaviors. This is from, I think, USA Today. The drugs most widely used to manage aggressive outbursts, and by the way, that's not people first. I took it out, I understand that. And intellectually disabled people are no more effective than placebos for most patients, and maybe less so, researchers report. In the study, Dr. Peter, whatever his name, a professor of psychiatry at Imperial College London, led a research team who assigned 86 people from ages 18 to 65 to one of 3 groups. One that received Risperdal, one that received a generic form of Haldol, and one that was given a placebo pill. Look at this. Caregivers tracked the participants' behavior unexpectedly. Those with the placebo group improved the most significantly. Tells it all, doesn't it? Those on the sugar pill. 60% of all individuals with a primary diagnosis of a developmental disability and the secondary diagnosis of mental illness have a trumped up, this is my opinion, diagnosis of the mental illness to meet best practice guidelines for prescribing medication. What do you think? Okay, here's the definition of physical restraint. It's impairing another person's bodily movement with your body. All agencies use physical restraint. You all do. There are various categories. When someone needs assistance in mealtime, come here, Caitlin, for a moment, would you please? I'm not going to pay you for this. Just come on up here. Is that?
Pro bono.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Send me a bill in the morning. Okay, so you're going to sit down here. Here's an example of mechanical restraint for developmental purposes. Caitlin cannot eat independently, so I take my hand. And by the way, this is the assist. You never stand in front of somebody. This is what direct care staff do. I may be good looking, but she's not going to learn anything from my face. She needs to look at her food. I'm very serious. And that my hand shapes out. I'm behind hers. And you've seen those research things with the thick windows, and they have radioactive material on one side, and they have the robotic arms, and every movement here is a corresponding movement on the other side. Okay, same thing here. So as she goes up, my hand opens up, goes to her mouth, and I guide her down. That's a physical restraint. I'm controlling her movement, so her hand can't go in all directions. But it's physical restraint for developmental purposes. Thank you. Send me a bill. I'll pay you in the morning. And that I may be doing that to teach her how to comb her hair, brush her teeth, but that's what DSPs do. Direct care staff are not even instructed on how to do that. They are there to take care of people. They'll brush their teeth and comb their hair. And when I come back 10 years later, they'll still be combing their hair because the person will never become independent. Isn't it interesting? In the state of California, in order to perm, color, and trim somebody's hair for money, you got to take a class, pass a test, and be certified. Do I have that right? In the state of California, in order to trim and paint somebody's nails for money, you got to take a class, pass a test, and be certified. In the state of California, in order to embalm a dead body, I'm not making this up, you got to take a class, pass a test, and be certified. In the state of California, in order to guard a building that's vacant at night, to be a guard, you got to take a class, pass a test, and be certified. But in the state of California, we can hire people off the street, come into the lives of people with developmental disabilities, and there are no competency-based requirements whatsoever. None. And don't tell me CPR and Heimlich. That's not the job. That's collateral issues. And that is a decision we made for them not to have competence. You can't come with any other explanation. We all understand the concept of competence. We do it for any other profession except in our field. Oh, by the way, there is one state that has competency-based requirements, North Dakota. There's only 10 people with developmental disabilities in the state, so it's not a big deal. Minot State University developed the competency-based requirements. Physical restraint to protect from harm. Somebody runs out in the street, laying on the street, you go physically remove them off the street. That's a physical restraint. This type of physical restraint we're trying to get totally away from the crisis. We need to know how to, and there's all kinds of, I just was working with an agency that had a young man that was just so aggressive and self-injurious. So guess what we put in place? Everlast. He had sent, I don't know how many staff to the hospital, pulling their hair, trying to knock their teeth out. You all know what Everlast is? They use in wrestling. It's the kind of things that you hold up when people spiral. So, you know, they back, and we'll give the staff those kind of things to hold up to, because if you're concerned about being injured, you're not going to get close. And how do you emotionally connect with somebody if you can't get close? We'll have folks that headbutt. So what we do is we'll give the staff the Everlast helmets. They're padded helmets, so when he headbutts, he won't hurt himself. Come on. There's no requirement against. We can restrain the staff all we want. And you're not going to get in trouble for restraining your staff. And staff appreciate that. They want to be safe. But most agencies have made a decision not to do that. Therapeutic hold. It's an oxymoron. Take them down. It's therapeutic. It just makes no sense, right? Therapeutic hold. Impairing another's bodily, let me bring this up here. To consequate behavior, can't do that. Not acceptable. So you can't use physical restraint as a consequence to something that they do as an aversive consequence. You can use it to keep people safe, as we just said, but you can't use it as a therapeutic intervention. And to achieve medical outcome. That's what most agencies use physical restraint for. You have an OT prescription for range of motion. You take somebody's arm and go like this because they have contractures. That's physical restraint for a medical outcome. You want their arms, but it's a physical restraint for a medical outcome. And we do a lot of that kind of range of motion, passive range of motion kinds of stuff. Okay, privacy, here we go. So that was the first value. Everybody got the thing on restraint? Second value, privacy. And I really like and And I've tried to make it clear, every one of these had this same little wall behind it with the chair, and we come up with different stuff here. And what you will see up here, I really like. I'm not sure where I obtained it, but it gives us some really good insight to what we mean by privacy. The state of being free of public attention. The ability of an individual to seclude themselves or information about themselves. That sounds like HIPAA, doesn't it? That's correct. Now, this is the statement I like. I love this statement. It's a wonderful statement. Privacy helps us establish boundaries to limit who has access to our bodies, places, and things. It is a fundamental right, essential to autonomy. That's a really important, essential to autonomy and the protection of human dignity, serving as the foundation upon which many other human rights are built. It's a really good one. Privacy is essential to who we are as human beings. Most of our folks do not have privacy. Why? Because you don't give infants and children privacy. In our general culture, we have a different expectation as to what constitutes privacy for children versus adults. And since most of the people we support are seen as children in adult bodies, how do I know? Just walk into the home. Look at the leisure items they give them. Children's stuff. Look, that's the decision they make, right? And what you expect as staff to treat somebody as an adult when management has made a decision for them to have things that are 4 and 5 and 6 and 8-year-old because they couldn't come up with alternative things that they like more? Attend my session on achieving the right of adult status. Give you lots and lots of ideas on those options. And we never take things away from people. That's not the point. It's not what people have, it's what they don't. It's giving people options. Here we go. These are a whole series of photos that I have taken, again with permission. And this is a bedroom shade that only goes down halfway. Makes no sense. And it's in a bedroom. I drove up in front of this house. It was in the fall, I don't know, maybe 6:30 in the morning. And I took that photo through my car window, able to look in to the person's bedroom, because when they went to bed, the staff didn't assist them in closing their shades. What do you think of this? I'm not making this up. The home had no doors on bedrooms, and all the bedroom down the halls, they were only 3/4 length high. And guess what? They were proud of it. You know why? Because now we can see what's going on. We can see if these people are hurting each other. Yeah. Oh no, licensed. And I'm also, my right hand, and I don't mean for this to be negative, they are CARF accredited. Explain that to me. I'd love to tell you who this place is, but I won't. I never share anything that's negative. I take all these pictures, always with the understanding, and I never leave without making sure management is aware of my position. Management always knows. I do what are called exit interviews, administrative exit interviews. This is in a bedroom. If you have those kind of window coverings, get rid of them. They don't work. Those things they hang from little plastic tabs. People always break them down. And again, I'm putting this up to try to demonstrate that most folks do not have privacy. And this is only one form of privacy. Make sure you have your pajamas on because the neighbors have a good view. Why would this type of window covering be used in a home where individuals tend to be destructive? Well, it doesn't make any sense, right?
Oh, that was a question.
Yeah. Licensed, gorgeous home, 4 people in the home, good staff. Who put that on the refrigerator? Home administrator. By the way, do those people have service coordinators?
Yes.
Do service coordinators come to the home?
Mm-hmm.
Did they say that? They don't get it. They don't get it. But that's a perfect example. That home administrator, is she mean-spirited? No. Malevolent? No. Ignorant. Ignorant. Ignorance is good news, because I got a cure for ignorance. If you said, well, Tom, she did that because she hates these people, and she wants everyone to know, oh, excuse me, I didn't put it up there, I'm sorry. She wants everyone to know that, I wasn't up there, I'm sorry, that, yeah. Sorry about that. Beautiful home. What do you think?
Seen a lot.
I mean, that to me is a perfect example, is that, and if you ask that agency, do you provide people privacy? What would they say? By the way, who is Paul? Who is he? Me. You want your name up there? So people come into the home? Look at this one. I drove up into the driveway, 6 o'clock in the morning. This is California, I will tell you that. The last one was California too. 40% of all my time is in California, because California probably has 40% of all the people with developmental disabilities in the country. And which is cool. They made the office the garage. I like that, because you're not taking away people's space from them. But when I drove up, the garage door's open and there's all the individual files and everything, no lock. Come on, neighbors, take a look at the files. Come on over here. This garage is used in an office for the residential manager of this home that supports 3 individuals. Do you like those little guys down at the bottom? The garage door is frequently open with all the resident records unsecured. Here's another great example. They'll have a bookcase, and I said, well, what are these notebooks in there? Oh, Tom, that's where the staff record target behavior. Well, whose target behavior is that? It's yours. Are you sure you want anyone, some mom of one of the other guys, to come in and pick up the notebook and read about you? There's a little law. I know you're California and you're liberal, but you still have to follow HIPAA, guys. That is a violation of HIPAA, if nothing else. Another great one. It is in the dining room. Obviously, somebody broke into the cabinet. You can see that file cabinet. So now let's just put them all on the top. We got good access there. And I will tell you, probably close to 80% of all the homes I go into have made a decision not to follow HIPAA, at least 80%. Because there's only a relatively, and the smaller the provider, the more likely they've made that decision. The bigger providers have what are called EMR, electronic medical record systems. And so when you have an EMR, you don't do that. All your MARs are on there, everything's on there. It's not an issue. But most smaller providers are still doing everything on paper. So they are the ones most likely to violate HIPAA. And look at that, upper left, in a dining room, again, individual records so the staff can get to them right away, violation of HIPAA. The program records for the 6 residents in this home are situated in the dining room. And as you all know, all these places where you see these pictures are licensed, okay? So licensing is not going to do anything about it. Hopefully the final rule will. Okay, choice of provider, here we go. Oh, Tom, you got a lot to cover here. A provider of HCBW services can be a person or an organization, a not-for-profit, for-profit, sectarian, non-sectarian, governmental, or quasi-governmental. Or it can be a person, professionally trained, friend, relative, spouse, parent, brother, or sister. That's what's behind it. The HCBW standard is that the waiver recipient can choose both the organization they wish to provide them the staff, as well as the staff hired or contracted by the organization. And that's all I've got to share with that one, because there's really nothing more that I can tell you than that. Let's look at setting. Next value. What am I on? 5? 4. People can choose where they wish to live. Perhaps their choice of setting is a cabin in the woods, cottage on the lake, mobile home. What's interesting is California tends not to use mobile homes as a good option for residential support. It is my experience that people who live in mobile home parks receiving waivered services tend to have the best quality of life. Think about it. There's little discrepancy between their socioeconomic status and the person next door. That home that I just showed you with the stainless steel refrigerator, you know what that house cost? That house is, you ever heard of Brilliant Corners, guys? Yeah. Okay, come on. We're all on the same page. That is a Brilliant Corners house. That house is close to $1.2 million. 4 people. You tell me how many people who are indigent on Medicaid can afford a $1.2 million house. Come on, just think about it. They can't belong to the same country. And I'm not making this up. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about because you're operating some of these places. They have no relationship with the neighbors. The neighbors doesn't even want them in the damn neighborhood. When I see people who we support in mobile home parks, their dog runs with the dog next door. And guess what? They're doing their laundry at the mobile home laundromat. They're interacting with people, maybe with support staff helping them, chatting softly with their neighbors on a summer night across the porches. That's where you see the best things. Best quality of life. Apartment, condominium, extended family home. There it is. That's what we were talking about. Shared living arrangement, parents or other family member. Where would you like to live? Here's the bottom line. We all want to live in the same place. We all want to live someplace where we're treated with dignity and respect. Everything else is a facade. It doesn't make any difference. It's the dignity and respect. The current service system is commonly characterized by finding people for places, as we had said earlier. We have a vacancy in our day program. Do you have a referral? Got somebody you can put in our day program? We have an empty bed. You have someone to place here. In a person-centered organization, and that's the key. That is the requirement of the final rule. It must be person-centered. Supports are created and identified to meet the needs and desires of each individual. People, places for people versus people for places. That's the key. You know, when my mom died at the age of 93, and when she was still living at home with my father, and somebody would come up to me and say, well, Tom, how's your mother doing? Well, thank you very much for asking. I know she'd like to hear from you. Why don't you give her a call? She's at home. Got it? After my father passed away, my mother was in assisted living. Same person would come up to me and say, well, Tom, how's your mother doing? Well, thank you very much for asking. I know she'd like to hear from you. Why don't you give her a call? She's in a home. 2 little words that are dramatically important. It's the difference between being at home or in a home. Are the people you support in a home? Were they put in a home? We put my mother in a home. She wasn't at home, she was in a home. That's why I said, at Agnew's, they lied to you. They moved to another institution. Beds. I work in an 8-bed home. What kind of beds? Double bed, hideaway, rollaway, or Murphy? And then you'll hear people say, we're going to backfill the bed. Just passed away. Backfill is like when they dig a hole and they put in pipe, right? And then after the pipe is in, they put the dirt back in and they backfill the hole. We're going to backfill a bed. What that does is objectify human beings. They are not objects to fill beds. Think about the word placement. I'm going to place this water bottle here. Placing is what you do to objects. It comes out of the Victoria era where women would have these dinner parties and they would put placards on the table so the guest would know their place. Interesting. Without the resident's permission, this is an important part of the values of the final rule. Do you answer their doorbell? Boy, that's the common one. When I go to a house and I knock on the door and the staff come to the door, you know what you're going to see right after that, by the way. And the first thing I say, do you live in this house? The staff answered the door. Who answers your door? Your butler, James? What is this? And I love this one. Well, Tom, they're eating dinner. They're eating breakfast. Well, who answers your door when you're eating breakfast? See, you make 2 decisions. Either you don't answer the damn door or you go answer the door. What is that? These staff think like they're housekeepers and butlers and crap. I don't know what that is. Can't do that. Answer their doorbell. Do you answer their phone if there's a landline? Open their mail? Sit on their beds? That's a no-no. Enter their bedrooms. Oh, by the way, look at that one. Use their bathroom. That's an interesting one. All 3 of my daughters live relatively close. My wife and I moved from St. Louis to Indianapolis so we could Our 3 daughters went to undergraduate school at Indiana University in Bloomington, ended up marrying men from the Indianapolis area, so that's where they settled. So when our first grandchild was born, we moved there. They live relatively close. I can't imagine being at one of their homes and just walking in and using the bathroom. I always ask my daughters, can I use the bathroom? And if they're not there, one of my granddaughters or grandsons, is it okay if I use your bathroom? It's not my house. And here staff live, they're going in homes where people have leases. They're employed by these people and just go use their bathroom without saying anything. And worse yet, and I'm not making this up, there are residences that segregate the bathrooms based on intelligence in day programs. It is not against the law. In the state of California, you can have segregated bathrooms on the basis of intelligence, and your state legislature has not put any laws in place to stop it. Can you imagine if I had, okay, all African Americans, your toilet's down there. Jews, you got to use that toilet over there. Latinos, that one over there. But we can, hey, I'm in a day program, and I say to one of the supervisors, I have to use the bathroom. Where's your bathroom? Tom, go down the hall to the left, second door on the right. Oh, no, that's okay. Let me use this bathroom over here. No, Tom, you don't want to use that one. We have a guy that pees on the floor, another one that smears feces on the wall. We don't even have any toilet paper in there. I said, that's okay. I'll use that bathroom. I go on over there, and they got a sign on the door. Client bathroom. So they have one set of bathrooms for people with IQs of 70 and less, and another set of bathrooms for the staff of IQs 100 and higher. 1 second. Guess what I do? I rip the sign off the wall. I'll tell you what I believe, and I can hardly get anyone to agree with me. I believe there is no separate but equal. That's what I believe. I can't get anyone to agree with me. Yes, ma'am.
So when we talk about federal requirement number 10 and accessibility, isn't that addressed within this?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that
yes, that's a dignity and respect.
Like saying,
yes,
right?
It's a dignity and respect issue. Probably more and fall into the value of dignity and respect. To have segregated bathrooms on the basis of intelligence, state legislature licensing doesn't care. You can continue to segregate. Now, by the way, do I have a guest bathroom in my home? Yes.
Right.
Do I use my guest bathroom? Yes. If one of my guests, if somebody's in there and they need to use a bathroom, will I have them go down the hall and use another bathroom in my house? Yes. But I don't have segregated bathrooms on the basis of intel. I have a guest bathroom. These homes could have guest bathrooms, for their guests, but the people who live there would still use the bathroom. Wait till you see some of the things that may come up. I'm not sure if we'll get far enough, but you're going to get all these slides on this. I got some great photos of bathrooms segregated. People are in a home rather than at home cannot keep their personal items in the living room for fear they will be stolen, broken, misplaced, hoarded by others. That is not where I wish to live. This is really good. This came out of North Dakota, and I loved it. 6 people lived in this home, and one of the women had a very complex jigsaw puzzle in the living room that she had been working on for several weeks. That's called a marker, M-A-R-K-E-R. A marker, those things you see in the environment that are really good. Red flags are those things that cause you to ask more questions. That's a marker. A marker is a cookie jar, because a cookie jar indicates you're trying to give people an internal locus of control rather than snack time, cookie for you, cookie for you, cookie for you. Right. The story, our home, a story of who we are and a collection of all the things we love. Group homes lead to stereotyping, as is commonly the case with fraternities, college dormitories, convents, prisons, homeless shelters, ghettos, nursing homes, communes, halfway houses, reform schools. I'm a segregationist. I don't want you to think I'm not. I have no problem with segregation. The problem I have is segregating disenfranchised people. If the Amish all want to live with their own kind in northern Indiana or Pennsylvania, let them do it. If the Hasidic community, the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community all want to live with their own kind, let them do it. If a group of nuns want to live in a convent, let them do it. I'm not against segregation. I'm against the imposition of segregation with disenfranchised people. And there's no group of people, in my opinion, that are more disenfranchised than the people who we support. Most of them don't even have a vote. The issue is not segregation. I just want to make that clear. Is there a defense or a retort that can be made in response to these provocative statements? Group homes are a form of homelessness. They are pretend simulated homes. What does staff say? Staff says, Somebody walks back into the house. Did you have fun on your community outing? Oh, one step to another. Let's make sure there's enough gas in the van. We got a community activity tonight. Staff to a few folks. Come on, let's get in the van. We're going to go to the community. When was the last time you went home on a Friday night and said to your kids, okay, kids, we're all going to the community? Who talks this way? We're all going to go to the community. And by the way, that home that is on a block, and some of you have homes that are in neighborhoods, I will guarantee you there's no one in any of those homes on that block that talk about going to the community. No one. Why do the people who work in that home do that and the home administrator? The reason they say that is that they know these people are not part of their community. They think it's someplace else. And you don't have to agree with me, then just give me an alternative explanation why they're saying that. Group homes are islands in a neighborhood where the residents are marooned. Group homes lead to compromises either necessitated for the collective good or to meet regulatory demands that most of us would perceive as an insult. Whenever you're ready, what's the defense? This is one of my favorites. Each of us has a unique understanding of what makes a residence a home, a place where I feel loved, where I can express my individuality, that provides me a feeling of security, where my belongings and possessions are safe, that I take pride in, that is always there to go back to and retreat, that I call my own, that I share with family and friends, where I determine my rhythms and activities. Check the items owned by residents in their group home. What's in the living room? The living room, that's the key. You know, what's interesting, there's 4 people that live in a home. This is historical too. One of them is Catholic. They put a cross in the living room. The only one of 4. Licensing comes in and says, why is that cross in the living room? They're the only person here who's Catholic, needs to go in their bedroom. Guess what the final rule says? Just the opposite. I am Jewish, my wife is not. She has a Christmas tree. Where does it go? In our living room. It's her tree, our living room. Putting religious artifacts in common areas of the home is absolutely appropriate. How many of the folks, by the way, who you support even have ashes of any family member? Do they have to understand that it's ashes in order to have them? No. It's just one of those things. How many of your folks, when somebody passes away in the home, they had a relationship for many years, how many of the people you support are pallbearers? It's interesting that there was a very large group of people in this country up until about 30 years ago that were denied any opportunity to be pallbearers. It was nearly half the population of this country were not allowed to be pallbearers. Anybody know who those people were? Women. It's only recent. Women. It's only recent that women have been allowed to be pallbearers. Absolutely. There's another group of people that tend not to be pallbearers. Children. Why do you think the people we support are not pallbearers? Because they're perceived as children. Yeah, and my examples are irrelevant. Don't get your shorts in a knot with my examples. Don't have people go out and, it's like, Tom said we need to lower the closet bar in the bedroom because people use a wheelchair. I don't care. What's important are the principle of this stuff. The examples are irrelevant. I don't care about the example. Tom said they need to pump gas. I don't want him to pump gas. No, but people will put in an evaluation. Thank you for the idea of pumping gas. Once you see somebody as an adult, they'll have adult life opportunities. That's the point. Freedom to decorate. So are your folks free to decorate? Okay. You think so? She thinks so. So I know. Well, that's good. I mean, what about they want to put the Trump sign in the front yard? Is that okay if one of them wants to do that?
I have one do it.
Good,
And wear a
okay.
Trump shirt.
The what?
And wear one just program.
He had a program.
Wore it to program.
Yeah, well, that's on his shirt.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
put a sign in the front.
Well, that's good. Yes. Yeah, not that it's Trump. Trust me. No. You know me well enough. Okay. Yeah.
Another one wanted a gun shirt and
Yeah.
the program was upset.
Well, this is that you got your train on the track and it's going in the right direction. I will tell you, in most provider agencies, if someone wants to put a political sign in the front yard and a congregate residence, 4 or 5 people live in the home, there's no way they'll tell them no. That's in clear violation of the final rule. It's their home. Yeah. Now, you got to get consent from the other people who live in the home. Yeah. And in other words, when I do that, not for my shirt, but for the sign in the yard, because we're all living. It's not. We all have to agree. You can't put something on the living room wall unless we're all in agreement. To this kind of thing. The agreement is going to be really important. As is true for you and me, we may choose to display religious artifacts in our living room, political signs in our front yard, a loved one's funeral ashes in the great room, an accent wall painted to a variety of psychedelic, mind-blowing colors, sexual revealing paintings or artistic photos, as long as the other people in the home agree. If it is offensive to the staff, go work someplace else. Very simple. It's true. And by the way, that has been true before the final rule. If your housemates are indifferent to these personal displays, what gives your landlord, and that's all the provider is a landlord with a lease, the right to say you're not allowed to do that? Now, what's interesting is wait till you see all these leases change. No, because the lease dictates it. If you don't like the lease, then don't move in. There are apartments that I remember before I had a home, there were apartments I wouldn't move into because it prohibited me from putting holes in the wall and I couldn't hang anything on the wall. There were places that I had to have white lining in the drapes because they all had to be white from the outside. I couldn't afford to get lining from the drapes, so I wouldn't move in.
But California's tenant laws are such that that would not even be possible.
Okay, well, in California it may not be. You may have laws. Remember, all tenant lease laws are a state issue, not a federal issue. And there may be such controls in California that you can't tell people. In condominiums, I'm sure they can tell them, though, that they has to be white on the outside. But
Sure.
yeah. But those still apply to the people we support. So if you have a lease that has certain kind of restrictions in it, that's just the way it is. Then don't move in, unless specified in the lease or in the individual support plan. Group home, a residence where the inhabitants maintain all their life belongings in one half a bedroom. That was, because historically people shared bedrooms and you had to keep all your stuff in your bedroom. It was never in your family photos and all that all went in your bedroom. You never put anything in the common areas of the house. This one is from California. And man, is that a marker. Remember a marker? This is like really good. I'm in the guy's house. He has a great kitchen with a full refrigerator. He showed me around his home. I go into his bedroom and a very similar refrigerator is in his bedroom. And I said, but you have a refrigerator in the kitchen. And by the way, he works on a mobile work crew cleaning metropolitan city LA buses. They clean buses. And so he does pretty good. He makes quite a bit of money. I said, why would you have a refrigerator in your bedroom? He says, well, at night I want a soda or a beer, and I don't want to have to walk all the way into the kitchen. He's just lazy. But see, that's great. When you see that, you just say, golly, that provider gets it. Is it ridiculous to have a refrigerator in your bedroom? Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. But who cares? But there are providers that would say, you can't put that, no, honest, there are providers that say, you can't put that in your bedroom under the final rule. By the way, can you put a refrigerator in your bedroom? Of course. Maybe you can. You have laws that say no. Though the man who resides in this apartment has a complete kitchen with a similar refrigerator, decided he also wanted a refrigerator in his bedroom. And as unusual as that may be, it was never challenged. If you wanted a refrigerator in your bedroom, could you put it there? Of course. And this is another one I really like. This is a home, can't remember how many people, maybe 5. And they've taken all their Special Olympic memorabilia and put it together on the fireplace. So it wasn't like just in their bedroom, as you will see commonly. They put it on the fireplace, so it's all there. It really screams out something neat. This one is great. This guy, this is a really perfect example. This man has cerebral palsy. It's rather pervasive. The pole is to help him get out of bed. He uses a power chair. No, it's not one of those things for the day. I've not even thought about that one. I know where your mind is. Okay. But no, he's just, and what he's really doing, he's sort of giving the system the finger. I mean, he really is. He's got all this ridiculous Mickey Mouse stuff and then the Playboy button, and he does that just to sort of make a comment. I thought it was really great. It's a good marker that everyone felt comfortable in him doing that. And this is a gentleman with autism who has very obsessive thought, compulsive behavior regarding school buses, bus. And they supported him in having it as a collection, which I thought was good. It was really a good room. Those are all family pictures, religious artifacts. You see all of that stuff there. When you walk into a bedroom, here's your key. I'm going to give you the key. When you walk into a bedroom, and you've never met the person, you want to know who lives there. Is it a man, a woman, a little boy, a little girl? What are their interests, their hobbies, their sense of religiosity? Who are the significant people in their life? You want that bedroom to scream out to you. That's what you're looking for. Okay, you're the first one to see this. This is one of the values, and I hadn't had anything in the system. I just put it in this last week. And as you recall, this is one of the values. It's a really weak area. And generic supports, it is a requirement of the final rule. Generic supports and services means supports and services that are widely accepted and available for use by the general public. It is not the role of support staff to provide support. Let's do it again. It is not the role of support staff to provide support. It's the role of support staff to help people obtain it. Yeah, and that's been the case for a long time, but the final rule is really pushing that. And this is what this looks like. I'll put some of these as examples. Natural supports are personal associations and relationships typically developed in the community that enhance the quality and security of life for people, including but not limited to family relationships, friendships, reflecting the diversity of the neighborhood and the community, and food bank. And it's unfortunate that many of our folks don't have an opportunity to utilize food banks, Meals on Wheels. Just think about who uses Meals on Wheels. People who are poor and people who have difficulty preparing meals. Seems like I've just described a lot of the people who use support. And what is behind? Why is that in the final rule? What was number 10? What was the 10th value? Anybody remember? Is there anyone who was here 2 hours ago? I need someone who was there. What was the 10th value? I said it was the 9, inclusiveness. No, inclusion, relationships. So when you use generic supports, you now are interacting with people. Poor people commonly don't have the money to go to a regular barber or hair salon. They go to a barber school. Many of our folks are denied that opportunity. Customer service assistant. All grocery stores are required to have an assistive shopper. All grocery stores under federal law. Why? If somebody comes in and they have a guide dog and they're blind, that dog may be smart, but he can't tell the difference between a can of bacon and beans and ham and beans. The guy goes up to the customer counter. They know who he is. They get on the microphone. Cashier at counter, or they'll say bagger at counter, and that will be the assistive shopper walking that man through. Your folks should be using assistive shoppers. They are required under federal law. Anybody know what law that could be? Olmstead Act. We already talked about it. The grocery store is not accessible to you if they do not provide you supports. It is not accessible. And many of your folks cannot go through a grocery store by themselves. It's not the role of your staff to take them through. It's the role of the staff to work with the assistive shoppers at the grocery store and teach and train them to go through with the person to do that. So generic supports, supplemental nutrition assistance program. Most of your folks hopefully have that. Program of all-inclusive care for the elderly, that's huge. Oh my gosh, that's huge. You got it in California. Anyone over 55, it provides everything. Probably anything that the Medicaid card won't cover, you can get through PACE. Take a look at it. It is incredible. Everything from transportation, dental, eyes, day support, you name it, it's in PACE. It's a fabulous program. By the way, I used to be able to lie and exaggerate all the time in my training. I can't do that anymore. People Google everything that comes out of my mouth. It's taken all the fun out of the training. Low-income home energy assistance. What about that? People can get significant discounts on all of their utilities through that federal program. People don't have, Medicaid won't pay for his glasses. They just paid for a pair. They only do it so often. Well, pick up the phone and have them call Lions Club. That's what they do. Any other poor person, that's what they would do. But we tend not to use generic supports. All banks have to be accessible. So all banks have services to help their clients or customers balance their checking account. Somebody has Alzheimer's and they're a customer. So your folks, why would the staff help them do that? Their job is to help them connect with the bank and have the bank use those services. In order to do that, you realize that the staff have to know the territory. Right? The staff have to understand what these concepts are. They need to be trained in understanding what those resources are. Secondhand clothing store. Now let's go to the next value. I may be able to get through this. Non-regimented routines means we sometimes make creative, instantaneous decisions to break routines and live a good story. Can you imagine your life if it wasn't spontaneous? I can't even imagine that. I mean, my wife and I decided at the last minute to order a pizza, decided at the last minute, let's go see a movie. Most of our folks don't have any spontaneity in their life. They're dependent upon us to get them from point A to point B and to do things for them. And it just doesn't work that way. And spontaneity is the spice of life. When routines are enforced upon us or practiced too regularly, we are at the risk of becoming robots, sacrificing spontaneous joys for an imagined need to stick to the plan. Allowing those we support to break from routine is great. That opportunity is much like romance, unpredictable and exciting. Institutional lives are regimented. What's an institution? A state of mind. Remember? An institution's not a place, it is a state of mind. You can't blow it up and you can't close it down. This is an example. Regimented routines are an institutional characteristic. 6 people live in a home, all of whom are incontinent. Third shift staff wake up 3 of them to assist in showering and changing their undergarments. They get them up at the same time, Saturday and Sunday, so the first shift staff don't have to deal with them all. Absolutely common protocol. By the way, can you imagine somebody wakes you up same time every day? Let's say do in nursing homes. That's an institution. Or the staff, they get them up, get them dressed to take their medication on the weekend. Can you imagine that? I take medication on the weekend. I wake up, take my medication, and go back to bed. There are places that literally wake people up, get them dressed to take their medication. And I say, why is he getting up? And, well, he has to take his medication. Is that sensitive? Asking permission. Who's my timekeeper? Okay, you let me know when it's 5 till, right? When people reside in highly controlling environments, permission must be sought to engage in life's everyday activities.
It was 3:50.
3:55. Okay, thank you. May I go outside, take a shower, have a snack, call my mom, lay down on my bed, watch TV? Which, by the way, there are people for whom we have to put restrictions on every one of those. There are people, if you didn't put boundaries on calling their mom, they call their mom 100 times a day and drive her crazy, okay? But we don't put those restrictions on. That's part of the team process, and it must go in their plan. One's quality of life is significantly influenced by the decisions one is empowered and supported in making in the lives of people with intellectual disabilities. Who decides with whom they spend their time, what they do during their day, and where they spend their free time. And I'm going to leave you with this one. Just if you want to make notes, since you're going to get these slides, we are on slide 123 of 284. The loss of liberty is the price of care. The loss of liberty is the price of care. How many of you are looking forward to going to, can you pass those evals out for me? Thank you. How many of you are looking forward to going to a nursing home? I can't wait. My mom, while she's doing that, I'm going to say something. I remember my father saying to my mother, Sarah, I can't wait till we go to a nursing home. When we go to the nursing home, they're going to shampoo my hair, brush my teeth, and push me down the hall. Sarah, I can't wait to go to the nursing home. When I go to the nursing home, they're going to make my bed, do my laundry, and dress me. Sarah, I can't wait till I go to the nursing home. After 6 months, we'll probably lose most of the skills that we have and become totally dependent on the staff in the nursing home. Let's go to the nursing home. Why would the people who we support feel any different? Why would they feel any different if they knew what we were doing to them? Why would they?